Well, have you ever heard the expression, as good as gold? Well, it's starting to take on more and more meaning these days, as more people are talking about returning the U.S. economy to the gold standard. Now, I know what you're thinking. This sounds crazy, a radical idea. And it once was. It was just reserved for seemingly radical people. But things are changing. Steve Forbes, a well-known businessman, CEO of Forbes and editor-in-chief of Forbes magazine, couple-time presidential candidate, he made an interesting prediction. He said a return to the gold standard by the United States within the next 5 years now seems likely, since that move would help the nation to solve a variety of economic and fiscal monetary ills. And it's not just Forbes. Author and investor Jim Rogers also says this situation is getting worse. He predicts problems and came down hard on Fed Chairman Ben Bernanke, saying, quote, Dr. Bernanke doesn't understand economics. He doesn't understand finance. He only understands printing money, and we can't quadruple the amount of money in the next slowdown. Well, earlier I spoke to a man who has been talking about this for years, Gerald-Celente, publisher of the Trends Journal and director of the Trends Research Institute. He told me why others are only now starting to jump on the gold bandwagon.
When Steve Forbes says anything such as, what seems astonishing today could become conventional wisdom in a short period of time, people should understand that when Steve Forbes says it, the horse is already out of the gate. This is the same guy that said that oil prices wouldn't go above $40 a barrel as they were headed toward $100 a barrel. And I love Steve Forbes, by the way, no one would listen to him if Daddy didn't leave him his magazine and he was able to ride the crest on it. Steve Forbes is so late on this, and it amazes me that the prostitutes out there, when Forbes speaks, everyone listens. Now, if you think that I have a bone to pick with him, Christine, I do. And here's why.
Certainly sounds like you do, Gerald.
Forbes magazine. This is March 30th, 2009. Last September, Laura Martin, the headline, by the way, is called Doomsday Investing. Last September, Laura Martin got spooked. The Dow was spinning down, and her boss, Gerald-Celente, who heads the Trends Research Institute, convinced her the stock market would soon be the least of her worries. Following the Celente storyline, Martin crashed out of her 401ks and shifted 60% of her assets into gold coins. I realized my money wasn't safe, says Martin, whose gold is now worth 20% more than she paid for it. Everyone thought I was overreacting. Here goes Forbes.
All right, so the bottom line is...
Let it be noted that we think she's overreacting. Gold might well sink below $500 an ounce.
So the bottom line is, Gerald, you're saying that Steve Forbes at one time criticized your idea that gold was the way to go, and now he's jumping on board, and you guys actually agree several years later,
well,
I'm sure.
Again, this is happening. You go back to the World Bank. They were talking about this 7 months ago. The dollar is collapsing. Jim Rogers is right about Bernanke. You know who the real public enemy number one is? It's Osama bin Bernanke. This guy's devaluing the money in front of our eyes. Look at wholesale prices today. Look at producer prices yesterday. The retail sales went up. Why? Because energy and food prices are going up. The cheaper the dollar goes, the commodities go higher. The dollar isn't worth the digital paper it's not being printed on.
Not to reiterate this too much, Gerald, but let's look around the world at what's going on. Interesting indicator, I think. This year, Mexico bought around 100 tons of gold. This is according to the Mexican Central Bank. You know, it looks like, to me at least, that the lost confidence in the U.S. dollar is everywhere, confirming another thing that your favorite guy, Steve Forbes, said, which is, people know that something is wrong with the dollar. He said if the dollar was as good as gold, other countries would want to buy it. So here's a question for you, though. We switched to gold as the gold standard. Is everything then sunshine and daffodils for the U.S. economy?
No, because the business of America is war, as opposed to the business of China is business. The United States is draining the Treasury before our eyes. Look, since this Libyan war, what, $1 billion already spent? I just saw a report today, since the war on terror, the United States has dumped $2 trillion. We have our manufacturing base, we have now number 2 to China. No, it's not going to solve everything. What it will do is, however, it will give other countries a more stable reserve currency to deal with, because they don't want to get stuck with a lot of worthless paper.
I'm curious, Gerald, about the feasibility of this idea. We've got these sort of more mainstream people talking about implementing the gold standard, but what this does is this takes the reins away from the elites here in Washington, from those, at the Fed, at currency manipulation. So despite these calls from these now respected business leaders, don't you think there will be a lot of pushback from those, used to having a little more control?
Oh, there'll be pushback, but they'll find a way how to come up with another scheme undreamed of to game the system. They'll make the rules, and we'll all have to play by them, and they'll come up with a different rule to get around it. But there's no question about it. The Fed could only do so much. Their game is almost over, and we're seeing it with mainstream guys like Forbes waking up and finally saying something has to change.
So, Gerald, you're saying the Fed's game is almost over. Are you saying that the Fed is going to collapse sometime soon?
Oh, no, I'm saying what the Fed can't do anymore. They're running out of cards to play, Christina. They can't lower interest rates anymore. They're near zero. They try the QE3 game again. The dollar crashes. This is what people forgot. And I was talking with you, I believe, when it happened, when you brought me on the day that Bernanke gave that historic Fed press conference, the first in their 98-year history. By the time he left the stage, gold prices went up $20 an ounce, silver prices went up $2 an ounce, and you pointed out that the trade-weighted basket of currencies against it, the dollar fell to 3-year lows. They're out of games. But the next game, and this is what people have to understand, is the next game is they take you to war. We've seen this play out. 1929, Great Depression, currency war, trade war, world war. We're in the same scheme right now.
All right, should be interesting to see what comes of this. Gerald-Celente, Trends Research Institute, publisher of the Trends Journal. Always great to talk to you.
Hey, thank you.